Love how the streaming thing does. All right, it muted me, so you guys are gonna have to unmute yourselves. But what we talking about today? Objective deconstruction. We're gonna literally be talking about America first. You hear a lot of talk about what America first is, and I know that Student X. First of all, let me introduce. We got Afro Agnostics in the house, and we got Student X. We don't got Student X for the full show, so I'm gonna let this brother speak. But this has been a contentious debate between Afro-agnostics and Student X about what America First is. And, Student X is going to be talking about what the constituents now are referring to when they use that label. And the Afro-agnostics is going to be talking about what it was from the beginning and how it correlates to the present. So the bottom line is that having been said, let's just get on to it, brother. Student X, America First. Let me first put this up right here. We Afro-agnostics put up this beautiful picture. So here we go, America First. And this is addressing these things. But go ahead, Student X. What is America First as you understand it to be in modern times?
Yes. Perfect. So hello, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to be on the show. Like I said, this is the show as far as I'm concerned. Mutant Politics is done. I might refer to myself as Mutant Politics, maybe on this
nigger.
So let me say that you are doing an excellent job on this. It's fun to watch and participate in. So shout out to you all, the show, and those who watch. Now getting into this America First, I know we're gonna get into the history of what America First has been and what it's meant, and it's not uncommon for these politicians to resurrect terms and bring them back, for different reasons. But today I want to remind people is that the landscape of America is a lot different than what it was in 1910. We have a lot more, brown people here from all walks of life, who are both citizens and permanent residents and other protected statuses here, so now, when people are looking at this term, especially if they lean more towards the conservative side of things, is that, it means what it says is that, hey, we want to put America first. So I'm going to share what I shared with Afro, in our dialogue. He asked me, what the hell does America First Solution even mean in regards to a post I put out of Joe Kent being interviewed by Tucker Carlson. Great interview.
Great interview.
So I'm sorry.
Agree. I said great interview. I agree. Go ahead.
Yes. And so I said I responded to Afro by saying by America First Solution, Tucker meant the pragmatic American prioritizing off-ramp exit strategy that Joe Kent outlined in an interview to end or de-escalate the U.S. involvement in the Iran war while protecting core U.S. national interests. This directly aligns with America First foreign policy Trump campaigned on: no new endless wars, focus on U.S. strength and economy over foreign entanglements, and prioritizing American lives treasure and avoiding quagmires that benefit rivals like China. And so, that is, what the majority of Americans today, what they voted for when we heard America First. Now, for the record, I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Kamala either. I went third party. I didn't trust and like any of the options they gave us, so I didn't go there. But I definitely lean more on if I had a gun put to my head, I had to pick one or the other, I was going Trump. No doubt about it. And this is why. No new endless wars. So my understanding was, as most people was that Trump, he was saying that he was going to end the Russian conflict. It should have never even started in the first place, he kept saying, and it never would have happened underneath his watch. And then, of course, we're dealing with, any future situations, that wasn't supposed to be the aim. And then focusing on U.S. strengths in our economy over foreign entanglement. Well, Iran is exactly that. That wasn't what he was supposed to do at all. And then, of course, prioritizing American lives and treasure, that is again, is not happening if this war escalates. And of course, the quagmires that benefit rivals like China. One will argue, that the actions right now in Iran is benefiting China, and Russia. And we could point to concrete examples. Russian oil sanctions have been relieved due to the pressure being caused in the Strait, and then I mean, that's just one example. So I'll stop right there, and then we'll go wherever you guys want to go.
Okay, so before I get to you, Afro agnostics, I just want to add a little bit to my concept of America first. Now, to me, as a disciple, there's we are accustomed to a concept of you got to get your house in order before you can get something else in order. You know what I'm saying? Outside of the house. So when you talk about America first, you're talking about at least in theory, you should be talking about things that impact here. You're talking about healthcare. You're talking about the economy. You're just talking about police reform, whatever. I mean, the bottom line is that particularly domestic. Now, I've always felt like Trump was like kind of an isolationist. I mean, this is the person that didn't understand that we're actually in a global community, and it actually serves our best interest to function in that global community globally. Like, it's just, we're not supposed to be on an island and to think this is going to be the best way for you either produce goods or whatever. There's just the nature of economies of scales and dynamics that come into play, that it's more cost effective for some people to do this and for other people to do that. So when we talk about America first, you talk about, so they're spending about $1 billion, $2 billion a day on this war with Iran, and it's like it only costs so many billions to basically address the healthcare situation that he basically, blew up with respect to, not the subsidies and stuff like that. So I'm just saying this was the type of hypocrisy. But to me, that you guys didn't see this coming is kind of ridiculous. He was always going to be the greater friend to Netanyahu. Everything that's playing out, this stuff was like the tea leaves were there. So that's why it's kind of a shock to me to sit there saying no more endless wars. You knew that he was going to basically be the basically serve his buddy. And I don't mean serve him as an inferior, but as a protective over the big guy, I guess the bodyguard of his buddy Netanyahu. And again, I'm not a person that's going to go after Israel. I'm going to particularly go after Netanyahu politically because I feel like he's basically kind of a crazy dude like Trump is. But now, Alpha agnostics, you've been very patient in all this that's been said. I want you to talk about what's going on with this whole American first. Why did you even bring this up? I want you to set the table why you even brought this up, hard, and then tie it to how this relates to what we both said. Hands off. We let you speak, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, but please cut me off. I don't want to go off too long because I can go down different branches, like a omnidirectional spider web.
We got time today.
Okay. Okay, so it does, be honest, just transparent and frank, it pisses me off when I do hear the term because it's just pure, to hear a Black person or a person of color say American first. It's just white supremacy, and it's a lack of understanding of one class, lack of understanding imperialism, and also the hegemonic imperialism that's embedded in the very phrase itself. America is not a country. Okay, it's a continent. When they say America, as we use it as a synonym for the United States, it's a projection of hegemonic power and rule. And that is what is at the root of what we're talking about. So like Student X mentioned foreign entanglements, and you mentioned foreign entanglements. This goes back to the speeches, the rhetoric of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, but they were not talking about in the Americas. They were talking specifically about entanglements in the old world with Europe in particular. They were not saying we didn't get a chance to talk about Cuba today, but the United States has been troops on the ground in Cuba since 1898. They've been in the Middle East since 1801. The United States was troops on the ground in Iran in 1942. United States is an empire. And that's the American First music movement is not, it's isolationist, but it's not anti-empire. So let me just, if I can just briefly sum up, what is it? It's American First is first and foremost a slogan. But let's examine really quick what personalities, what institutions have been first in origin connected with that slogan. I believe Woodrow Wilson is the earliest person to use the slogan on the national level, at least. And he was a big endorser of the Ku Klux Klan. They did parades on his behest in DC. He facilitated the premiere of the original Birth of a Nation in the White House. And he passed anti-Asian immigration legislation. So it's always been, it's hard, you can't divorce it from that. Because when we look today, we see that there's still two heads to and Student X alluded to it and mentioned it. There's two heads to American First. There's a foreign policy that's hooked into entanglement and a Monroe Doctrine. We can unpack and go into that later because most people do not understand what that really is. And then secondly, is hooked into domestic policy, which is anti-immigration, anti-everything but white. So that's my issue with it. And just really quick, I want to say it was so popular amongst white people back in those days that it's hard to disentangle it because it would assume that white people are doing this disassociation in their head, and they're not. It was so powerful that even Black people picked it up. Marcus Garvey, the Universal Improvement Association, picked up the term and reversed it and said race first, because they understand implicitly American First policies, domestic policies, were Ku Klux Klan policies, were in alignment with those type of views. So he reversed it and said race first during that same time. That was his response to saying Black people, we should think in terms of our own interests. But the whole notion that it implies that the United States has this history of domestic imperialistic policy, foreign policy that is not in alignment with the interests of the ruling class, it's always been in alignment with the ruling class. So what does American First really even mean? Alignment with the ruling class or non-alignment? There's no example of policies, or there are, and most of those policies in 20th century have come from the Democrats, reluctantly.
So, Student X had to leave, so that's why I'm glad
I know he had to get out them facts. He had to get out.
Look, and that's the truth. I mean, and to me, I liken this debate unto the issue of Black Lives Matter. You talk to the Hoteps, and they'll be like, "Oh, Black Lives Matter is an organization run by lesbian, financed by a white dude." Blah blah. They get all into the politics of the organization. I always go like, "Look, these are the people that were rocking the motto, the sentiment, Black Lives Matter. They didn't give a damn about that organization. We knew that organization was messy from the start, but the bottom line is the message was the thing that we were beating, banging on the table about. So, when you come to American First, I completely get you. You know what I'm saying? First of all, it's
I think also that's a misunderstanding of movements and how movements get labeled sometimes by outsiders, by incident that happened, like the Civil Rights Movement. The actual people that are identified or associated with it, they didn't call it a civil rights movement. You know what I'm saying? It was called that by others later in time. They called it a freedom movement. So I don't think we should, there's a difference between the label put on the movement. Black Lives Matter label was put on anti-police movements in the United States. Like Ferguson existed before the term. I mean, I was a part of the anti-police movement in the Black community before that label was put on it.
Yeah. So, and again, that's sort of like I always tell that to people about Christians. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't a label that the original the fathers, the founding fathers, or basically the apostles. That wasn't their description, their title. That was basically a label, that was given to them at some point. So it's just the nature of how that works. And it's just Negro or African American or whatever, I'm saying the bottom line is a lot, you come here as one thing and they call you something else and you may rock with or whatever. But I mean, again, it's just something that's subsequent. So to me, this whole America First thing, to me, I just think a more important slogan to me instead of America First would be, America in serving its best interest. America's figuring out the best way to do something. You know what I'm saying? To me, I'm not going to restrict myself from the global community if that's going to offer some basically increase to my economy, increase to lifestyle, whatever. I mean, the bottom line is changing technologies. I understand that there's a concept of being resilient, but we also understand that, just economies, the scales, that it's just, it takes a lot for me to do something that might be very little that someone's producing it at a very efficient scale. So it's just the nature.
And then American First, one is very vague, and it's as if there's this monolithic America, or United States is monolithic interest in the United States, and it is not. There's different class interests. Like, it may be beneficial, a certain foreign policy may be beneficial to the ruling class, and we can think of many examples, and harmful to the working class. It can be beneficial to the working class and harmful to the domestic policy or a foreign policy. So it allows to kind of look over the differences, like on women, the differences in class, the differences in race, and throws everybody into like everything. This foreign policy is beneficial to everybody, and it's not beneficial to everybody. It's beneficial, or you can say that there's a trickle down effect where, the working class gets some of the crumbs from the imperialist looting, but who gets the most of it? And in the process of getting it, what harm was caused to other working class people? I think a better term might be the working class first, something like that. Like, so you kind of make this delineation, but that is too left wing for the right and the conservatives. They prefer the vague term that's loosely tied to white supremacy because it allows for certain domestic policies. I mean, we didn't talk about it on the show, but we know the reason they got rid of Pam Bondi, the reason that we're in the longest government shutdown in United States history is over that immigration shit. That's American First. We're experiencing this shutdown because of that, and those type of policies are intimately connected with American First. That slogan.
And a lot of those people, and one of the reasons I butt heads with a lot of those people is a lot of these people base their concept of wrong or right on America. Like they're literally saying, like, well, this is not what America stands for. This was never. I'm not about to sit here and define what America was or should be or anything like. I'm gonna tell you what's gonna be best serving the interests of the people that occupy America. That, to me, when I think about America and I talk about America, I think about all of us jointly living here, trying to figure out some type of way of function. I understand that we come from far right, far left, and all points in between, but there's some things that we have, communal interest in, and that's where I always try to connect it. I'm not really focusing on how we differ or differ. I'm more concerned about on the things that we have in common, the issues that we have in common, the needs that we have in common, the things that impact us in common, and honestly, the things that are just going to lead to a better lifestyle of most people. For example, it's going to be in people's best interest if we have a really good healthcare system here. You know what I'm saying? I understand that the richest people have access to the best healthcare you can buy, but there are repercussions that people struggling, that people, whatever, sickly, this, that, and the other. I'm just saying that, certain things that get corrected on a societal level will have benefit and impact on a societal level that will impact more than just, the people that need this healthcare, but, not just the people that need homes or jobs, but the people that would otherwise maybe get robbed or terrorized or whatever. All of this stuff is connected. So, it's just like we were talking about, we're having a big debate about rape in the Focus Up show. And, rape is something that impacts everybody because it's one thing for that person to rape that person. But then what happens when it's your family or your child or your whatever? You know what I'm saying? So when you have an infrastructure in place that properly deals with it and not just punishment, not just discouraging people with fear, but real good counselship, real good parenting, real good mentorship, real good, fellowship. You know what I'm saying? That really just doesn't make excuses for behavior and policies, but really calls this stuff out. That's what you were talking about. I don't want to call out certain names because I don't want to be angry at certain people, but I'm just saying there's certain celebrities that did something And people just get on the fence like, oh, this is bullshit, oh, this is whatever. And I'm going, look. Let's not go there. Let's figure out from this point forward what's going to be the best way for us to minimize this type of situation. No just needs to mean no. No cannot mean maybe. I understand that some people or whatever, we need to take a hard stand that no means no. And going forward, we need to function that way. And that's going to have that impact that's going to basically change, the rape culture in the country.
And I'm very surprised to hear the pushback from conservatives, because they're always pushing personal responsibility. They oftentimes attribute violence to the Black community, and the Black community needs to take responsibility. But if 90% of rapes are carried out by men, I would think that since men are supposed to be protectors, it would be our responsibility. We want to be over that. We want to, be the primary people to reduce it and stop it. And the only thing we can do is think of is cutting off penises. I think we've kind of thrown in the crowd that type of mentality. Like, if men were being raped at the same rate that women are being raped, I'm sure we would think of and come with some solutions, because the only place where we see 1/6 of that rate of women raped in society, and men raped at a higher rate than they do outside here, is in prison. And men are very, very concerned and fearful. That's always a concern of men when they go to prison. And I'm sure every man in prison supports the prison rape reduction programs that they have there.
I'm sure that some people, it's a power. Some people are proponents of rape as a way of maintaining dominance.
Oh, I mean, besides there, yeah, I'm saying besides. Yeah. I'm just saying most, as he said, these quote unquote men that's supposed
most
to be
decent people.
It's just interesting because we see this happen to 33% plus women. So, and then no man has ever, acknowledged I'm a rapist, and then I'm not saying that we are, like, of course, obviously most men are not. But I think that we need to look, hey, do we, because again, when a bunch of fish are sick, you need to stop examining each individual fish and kind of examine the water. Like, something is in the water, something is in the culture. And we need to see what ways do we endorse it? How do we enable it? And that's, as me as a man, I look at how I, even as a victim of racism, how I have enforced racism and like secondhand smoke, like what they call internal racism. Like, what have I done to, develop inferiority complexes to other Black people about being Black? I've done it myself. Dark skin,
colorism. Yeah,
all the time, man.
It's a big problem in the Black community.
I was very attracted to this girl. I'll never forget, in middle school, and I did not date her because of the darkness of her skin, because I was afraid that I would be clowned by my friends. So that's when I'm telling men to look within. This is what I'm saying. I'm not blaming. I'm saying, no, it's our duty. As I'm promoting the idea of us being protectors. I think I got off topic though.
Well, see, you know what? But you bring up a good thing. Well, that's the thing about this show. We are natural, that we will evolve into, because there's only so much that can be said about one particular topic. So we will pivot. But I mean, it's a good point when you talk about.
I did want to get back though.
We'll come back to it. But I'm just saying that when you talk about holding men accountable, men should not feel defensive about calling out a behavior, especially one that doesn't relate to you. Like, this whole concept of defending the label of men, you know what I'm saying? To me, that's like some high maintenance Kevin Samuels type stuff, where it's just like, dude, if we understand that there is a prevailing issue in the male community, you know what I'm saying? Let's own it as a reality. And even though I'm not a person that's necessarily contributing to that problem, I can still contribute it to that solution, and I can identify it. You know what I'm saying? It's okay to be like, look,
Eldridge Cleaver, just on that point, Eldridge Cleaver said you're either a part of the problem or a part of the solution. So go ahead.
I mean, and that's the thing about it. For some reason, when you call out the numbers as they relate to maybe Black people or white people or whatever, people get defensive. And at the end of the day, it's like, if I know that that's not talking about me, I'm not going to feel like defensive from from a myself perspective. Now, I will get defensive if I think that someone's trying to make a racist argument and someone's going like what's the Nick Fuentes basically trying to make an argument that black people are dispositioned to violence and stuff like that. Now, I'd always say that if that were true, it's a byproduct of what black people here are subjected to. And then a person like him will go, well, what about, in Africa where you have all these, and I would say that would be a byproduct of the colonial impact of white people there. I'm just saying that, look, there's a reason why
contemporary Africa.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, because, that's what their argument will be. Like, well, what about all these tribes that are fighting? Dude, you understand that these places have been fully touched by the colonizers and all that stuff. When you talk about what's going on in Egypt and all of this stuff, that there's just like, look, these people have had their impact and influence, and it's absolutely changed the dynamic of history.
And when you tally up the violence, don't even play with it.
Exactly.
None of those deaths come close to World War II, World War I, or even the Civil War. Please get out of here. So what are you talking about?
That's why I say that. So my point is that, look, don't be defensive about it. I brought up Martin Luther King's, excursion, and Walk got, like, first of all, he got very upset, and then he was like denying it, like acting like he never heard of it, and so he hasn't heard of it. A person like that, and I'm not saying Walk in particular, would be like, well, why is this coming up now? And I'm saying that was the defense that Student X brought up about this Cesar Chavez thing. Dude, you're saying why it's brought to your attention now. People might have been talking about this, behind the scenes all the time. A lot of people that were talking about it saying that, look, we didn't want to derail the movement. A lot of good things were happening out of this movement. Yep. And at the end of the day, we took a bullet. But we took a bullet. Now the movement is strong. Let's address the bullet wound. You know what I'm saying? So that's that situation with there. But bringing it back to American first. You know what I'm saying?
And I just want to mention, because I never mentioned this before, but even though I was a part of the Malcolm X grassroots movement, my thinking and perspective is more in alignment with the Malcolm X doctrine. I'm a big Martin King fan. You know what I'm saying? I've read all 5 of his books, 3 of his bibliographies. I'm just like the biggest fanboy of Martin Luther King. You know what I'm saying? But I had to acknowledge, and to me, that's in a total separate category. Him having extramarital affairs in comparison to, Elijah Muhammad and his involvement with sexual involvement with teenage kids, or Cesar Chavez, and this is on the area of sexual assault and abuse and stuff like that. 2 different things, but I don't know this need to have this, and this is why I think men are natural good protectors, because we really go out of our way to protect, other men a lot, and protect image and legacy, and some of the things that I think are not important, but we really need to protect women. And one way we can do that is reducing the rape of women. That's where we can be the best protectors.
I remember a very contentious heated meeting we had off air on Focus Up when I brought up Gaddafi. And I was just saying that, look, I had the impression that he did a lot of great things over there for Libya, and just a lot of money that he had contributed to the nation. This is a dude that, he did some very positive big things. In fact, when he was taken away from Libya, even Obama admits that was his greatest regret, that, that they didn't have something in place, because, the bottom line is they're actually worse off than when he was whatever. But the point is that I saw a documentary that really broke down some of the things that were going on, where they had like a little sex dungeon, and where he was going to schools and plucking out, kids. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I'm not telling you that actually happened, but I'm saying that, look, it could have happened. And even though you did this great stuff, you can do this bad stuff too. We need to be okay with accepting both of those things. Bill Cosby did a lot of great things for Black image on TV, but it seems like he did some terrible things behind the scenes, and 2 things can be true. So, we can celebrate the good, but we do not need to whitewash the bad. It's just like them, when they talk about the forefathers and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And
I'm a perfect example.
Yeah, I'm like sitting there going, yeah, well, I'm not going to sit here and act like he wasn't a slave. Black people weren't good enough to be equal, but they were good enough to sleep with and have children with. You know what I'm saying? So, that's that bullshit. So, again, to me, I can call out the good, but I should say I can call out the bad, but I can still appreciate and respect the good. So, we don't have to deify, the people that come before us or our contemporaries that do great things. Just let's keep. You know what? Let's just keep it a buck. Let that be the model. Keep it a buck.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So,
keep it a buck. I think that's exactly what we should do. Just getting back to Woodrow Wilson was the first to really vocalize it on the national level. The phrase, the slogan, "American First," and in many ways, and people will tell you that he was just echoing George Washington's and the foreign entanglement. So I wanted to just stop right there and just say, because you used the term, Student X used the term as well. Do you familiar a little bit about the origin of it and its application, what it actually meant at the time that it was coined and used?
Yeah, you're talking about America First. Yeah, no, go ahead. But you have the
floor. America First. I'm talking about foreign entanglement, because George Washington that was warned against foreign entanglements and stuff like that. So
the world wasn't as global as it was. We didn't have the technology to be over there and be over here and all of this stuff like that. Literally, they were just dealing with the place that they came from and the place that they went. You know what I'm saying?
So I mean, I think that was part of it, and I think people, when they're reading like this is the tradition or it's the custom, they don't realize the context in which it emerged. Like the United States had just formed. They formed from a war with British. Prior to forming from the aftermath of the war with British Empire, they have fought against the French Empire. So it's just a small nation at that time, 13 colonies in terms of the concentration of the population. But think of how did it go from the size that was 1/10 of the size that it is now because of foreign entanglements. You can't have. So they were never, when they said foreign, because when they say foreign,
I need to accentuate what you just said.
Okay.
So just think about that. You were 1/10 of the size, and you acquired 9/10 from where?
Yeah,
from foreign. This country, literally, the whole thing was about the pioneers and the final frontier and all this other stuff. So you're absolutely right. It was absolutely fundamentally about foreign entanglements.
Yeah,
because it was foreign land.
So the thinking is like, were these policies that became part of? I mean, they were everyday. They were the policy of the United States was expansionism. We know that for sure. It was a continual expansion into Native American territory and so forth. That was not contradictory to what George Washington meant when he said foreign entanglement. In fact, when he said foreign entanglements, they were actually involved in the war with the Northwest Indians to take the Northwest Territory, which was what the British called the Indian Reserve. Part of that land is what we now call Indiana, Indian land. Illinois and so forth. So the foreign entanglement meant exactly no wars with Europe. It meant wars continually on the mainland continent. And then shortly after, not shortly after, but approaching the 19th century, they expanded it to mean that Latin America is our territory and that's our backyard. That became the Monroe Doctrine. It was basically, people look at it as a form of isolationism. That's the origin of isolationism. But isolationism just meant this is our domain. Anybody from Europe come over here, we fucking you up. Don't come over here. We the big dogs. So it's always been rooted in imperialism. And this is what I don't understand with the American First. I don't understand why the Black man would want to say American First. It's just nonsensical to me. The very term, again, projects hegemonic superiority. The Americas are a continent. There's, you have the Estados Unidos de Mexico. They refer to themselves as Americans everywhere. It's a continental thing, but they make it to be just one country. That's a projection of their power, and that's what the Monroe Doctrine.
Canadians are American, right?
Huh?
I said Canadians are American,
Canadians
right?
are Americans. Ecuadorians are Americans. Cubanos are Americans. So, but it's a projection of the power that the United States has sought to control ever since the Spanish American War. They've been in Latin America controlling things. So they're clearly been involved in foreign entanglement. So clearly you're not understanding what that means when you use the term in its application. It is not anti-imperialist, and that's my question. You got to be anti-imperialist, not isolationist. Isolationist just means this is our domain. But even that had to fall apart in the 20th century, because one thing that they applaud is the American dominance, which I don't applaud, but they applauded American dominance, blah, blah, blah. But that's part of being their patriotism and everything. But how can American being dominant without, like you said, with being an isolationist in the narrow sense that you think about it? Why are they in Iran? It's not necessarily about Iran. It's about disempowering China. You can't sit back and be an imperial power and allow another power to have influence in an area that you want to control. Duh, they're gonna get involved in this Iran war. What do you think? You support imperialism, and you don't really see the point. And American First does not speak to that at all. It does not speak to the class, like whose priority that you're talking about. So
man, anyway. I saw this interview. I gotta find it. It was a great
was interview. That pretty long though?
No. That was perfect. But I saw this interview where this dude was talking about how United States had sent over some business people over to China to teach them some particular technology or something like that, because it was just, it's going to just be more efficient to operate those factories over there. So they sent they sent the experts over there, they sent the technology over there, and that was the beginning of the infrastructure that just put them on the path to surpassing us from a technology standpoint. And a lot of it was just because, when they need to decide a policy, those policies get decided quickly. Because we're a democracy, and the left can't agree with the right, and so everything's gonna be fought tooth and nail. So just to make a basic decision, it's gonna be a big fight, and it's gonna be impacted every 4 years because of who's basically kind of running that that show, so to speak. But the bottom line is, because they have a heavy hand over there and they make decisions quick, it's just gonna create a situation that's gonna be hard to compete. I mean, the fact that they can, the labor that they can do for so cheap, the fact that they can create what they can create so cheaply, which we can't, you know what I'm saying? It's just that, but these are the things that they occupy, but we need to be better than them. And I'm like, dude, we need to be the best that we can be. And I don't mind anybody else being the best that they can be, if that's even better. At the end of the day, be the best that you can be. You know what I'm saying?
So that's that imperialism right there. We need to be better. Yeah. We need to dominate and so forth like that. And I think that's really at the heart of not at the heart, but the implication of that. Like even because in order for the United States,
for America to come in first, not just America first, for America to come in first.
Come in first, yeah, exactly. So exactly, that's a good point. I didn't make that connection. So in order for the United States, they don't understand, to have this, to be the superpower it is, it must engage in continuous, endless wars. What are you thinking? Like you don't want wars, but you want to be the dominant figure. And I don't support it. I'm anti-imperialist, but these people don't make the connection, and they think that, again, foreign entanglement somehow means don't get involved.
Why does Trump want Greenland?
Man,
I mean, why does Trump want Cuba? You know what I'm saying? It's just I
think both of those are tied into China. All three of those are tied into China in particular.
So we know Venezuela was, because Venezuela is like a big fuel supplier for us. So all of that stuff.
I think for Iran, I think 70 to 80% of their oil exports, because the United States put a sanction on them. And that's the other thing too. You're not understanding that. You think that it happened you think that the war started February 28th, a couple of weeks ago. No, man, the United States, and you think And this is what a lot of American First people, and I think Student X, I don't want to misquote you, but they think, and I've heard it, that the United States is involved in Iran because on behest of Israel, and that Israel is leading this, taking a deviation. It's like, but what was Afghanistan? What was Iraq? What was Libya? Well, we can go all the way back to the Northwest Territory. Like, there's been endless wars because of imperialism. And guess who suffers? People of color suffer. Guess who benefits the most? The white ruling class. So, but you get to say we're powerful, we're the best, and then turn around and why are we in this war? And blame the Jews. The United States again has been boots on the ground in Iran in 1942. Why were they there? They were there because the British and the USSR had invaded Iran, because Iran allowed for them to do a supply chain around Germany to Russia. And the United States came in support to enforce the infrastructure, logistics, and all that for that supply chain, which was tied into like the Strait of Hormuz and all of that stuff. They've been wanting to control that. That's the benefit. I don't know why Student X doesn't understand that. He says that it's not in the United States' interest. What war is in the United States?
Well, because
wars are in the interest of the ruling class of the United States.
His argument was when he's talking about the interest, he means like the interest of Tucker Carlson, the interest of those of Candace Owens.
I can guarantee you it's in his interest. Man,
well, I get it. I get it. I'm just saying it, but he's just saying that the fact that they don't want it and it's happening. So by virtue of the fact that they don't want it, it's against their interest. But what you're saying is that, look, it's still serving an imperial cause that they're benefiting from, because it's the nature of being a part.
He's trying to say that they're not benefiting from. I'm like, the military contractors are not benefiting. The oil businesses, that they're not benefiting.
Hey, this
how is that possible?
This picture gets flashed a lot on this show, and the reason why is we talk about this. Like, we talk about the relationship between the nation of Israel, the thing that was established in 1948, and we're talking about the United States of America, and we talk about this relationship. There's a symbiotic relationship, but make no mistake about it, the rhinoceros is the United States of America. It's Israel that serves as a proxy, as a boots on the ground presence in the Middle East for the United States. Now, we understand that Netanyahu may have been manipulating Trump because he's not necessarily the most intelligent person, and he's very easily manipulated. But the bottom line is, we're talking about the interests of those nations. That's what that relationship is, So, it's just like with Ukraine. You talk about it, the argument on its face is that, they're an ally. They're an ally-ish. They're not part of the I forgot what the
NATO.
They're not part of NATO, but they're ally-ish. And the bottom line is there's a sovereign nation, and you want to protect the sovereign nation. But at the end of the day, what you do is you want your allies to remain strong, and you're hurting your people that are not your allies. You know what I'm saying? So again, two things can be true. But with respect to this relationship, we got to understand that that Israel is largely financed and empowered by United States of America. And if the United States of America takes that away, Israel gets screwed real quick. It's just the nature of what it is. So that when we talk about that symbiotic relationship, we got to understand the rhinoceros is still the United States of America. And when you try to make it that the rhinoceros is Israel, that's the difference between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. You know what I'm saying? Because now you're scapegoating.
So funny though, I can understand a little of the outrage, or you're dealing with a base that is already has anti-Semitic roots, that is already American first minded, anti-immigrant. So it's easy to all these terms we hear Zionists thrown around all the time now, but Zionists are Jewish, settler, nationalist.
Hold on a second. I feel like when we use this word, it's important to define this word. Okay. We probably don't agree on the definition, but as I understand it, their definition, you know what I'm saying? As Jew, I'm not a Jewish person, but I understand that their definition of Zionism is basically having a right to a land that they control that that they can feel safe, that they have rights to a land, that they can self-govern and protect themselves. You know what I'm saying? And if that's their definition I'm not saying that I because a lot of people, I'm just saying that to me, that's a respectable definition. I support that definition. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm not going to be on the show and tell you that I'm an anti-Zionist. I'm not. You know what I'm saying? I may be anti what Israel is doing, especially when you're talking about Gaza, especially when you're talking about Iran, a whole bunch of things. When you're talking about the culture I happen to be in Hebrew Israelite, so I don't necessarily agree with a lot of religious and all type of issues and stuff like that. But fundamentally, I think that everybody should have some space, some safe space to self-govern and self-determine. Now the question is, you can't just go take in somebody else's space and take away their ability to self-determine and self-govern. You know what I'm saying? That's when it gets messy. And when you talk about the apartheid stuff that actually happens over there, that's some bullshit. It's real. That there's apartheid stuff going over there, and you can't excuse that shit. You know what I'm saying?
And you can't. But let me just say what you said, because you can't remove somebody else from their land, and then likewise you can't in order to pursue your nationalism, and then also you can't discourage others from doing what you are doing, and that's what the Jewish people have done in their relationship to us in the civil rights movement. We can talk about that too, but you're right. There are two types of Zionism. There's like this religious Zionism, where people who describe and identify as Jews, they are anticipating the great Mahdi, the return of the Messiah, and that's their Zionism. There are some people who feel that Jewish people have a right to a homeland, but it shouldn't be in a situation where you remove other people, like in Palestine. Because you remember, Palestine was only one consideration. They also considered Kenya in some place in South America. So, I would say that when I say Zionism, I'm speaking specifically about political Zionism that started with Theodore Herzl in the 19th century. That is the Zionism that sought a state, a Jewish homeland as a state, and led to the signage of the Balfour Declaration that the British government would not look unfavorably to an establishment of a homeland for Jews in what was at that time the British Mandate of Palestine.
So that's establishing that. Yeah. So that I just have context, because again, we don't believe in. First of all, I hate to use the term anti-Semitism, but because of the whole anti-Zionistic thing goes to such a terrible place that I'll even use that label to describe that. We want to distinguish that. A lot of these attacks are attacks on these people that just don't have the power that people are ascribing to them. They just don't have the influence. And then even if you had a cabal of people amongst these people doing that, that still wouldn't be what the entirety of the people are doing. This is fundamentally terrible and ugly to do, to scapegoat races, to scapegoat, you know what I'm saying? It's not only intellectually insincere, it's not only intellectually stupid, but I'm just saying that it's dangerous.
But guess what though, nice guy? It is a part of the history of American First.
Of course it
is. I wanted to bring, post Woodrow Wilson going forward, I think his name was Lindbergh. I don't know if you can look it up, nice guy, or somebody in the audience. I think Charles Lindbergh, he was the first Lindbergh. Dang, that's saying he was a Jew, huh? But I think it was I can't remember the name, but he was the president, the first leader of the American First Committee. And a lot of his rallying points and his perspective and doctrine was extremely anti-Semitic. He's the reason.
Was that Douglas Stewart Jr.?
No, Charles Lindbergh, the American First Committee in the late 1930s, early 1940s, I believe. So he was very anti-Semitic. His movements like that associated with that American First Committee were the reason that the United States did not take Jewish refugees who were suffering under
So Charles Lindbergh was the spokesman, but the founder of the movement was Robert D. Stewart Jr.
Okay. Yeah, he was. That's correct. That is correct.
So Charles Lindbergh and Charles Coughlin, those were.
And Charles Coughlin, he was a Catholic guy too, and in all his rants, he would be on the radio with the Jewish conspiracy stuff. He influenced even, where I'm from, Detroit, Henry Ford. And, Henry Ford put out a pamphlet called The International Jew, which made reference to some earlier anti-Semitic stuff that came out of Europe called the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. And then there's all this conspiracy theory in Russia of Jews.
And then Candace Owen, the book that she what was the book called that she made a reference to?
Oh, that book. And look what she said. Jews, they don't even have to have evidence because it's already in the water. Jews control the transatlantic slave trade. And Sudenex himself said Jews control the Dutch East Indian Company. And they don't have to have any evidence. This has occurred in Europe for thousands of years. It's called anti-Semitism. And the very place where they say black people live here in the United States, the ghetto, is an Italian word for the Jewish living quarters, where Jewish people were forced to live. Jewish people have been repressed and oppressed in Europe, and there's a lot of Holocaust denial and anti-Semitism denial. I think the first thing folks need to do is to do a history of anti-Semitism in Europe. Big. Impactful. I mean, they've been an oppressed group in Europe. They don't even acknowledge that. But the whole notion is that they were oppressed for a reason, because a lot of this is just Christian bias from Europe.
And also a lot of it is a threat. I know that I talk to some people that are like MAGAs, that are big time MAGA supporters that are Jewish. And a lot of it is because they felt like they've been champions for Jews, and in a respect that's 100% true. When you talk about making Trump making Jerusalem the capital, these things were hostile to concepts of a dual state solution. But again, he was always going to be that gung ho supporter of them. But I always said that, look, you got to understand that the white what's the term? What's the Anglo-Saxon, they're not threatened by black people. They're threatened by Jewish people. They're threatened by Jewish power and Jewish success and stuff like that. Like black people, they were okay with black people being servants. The only thing they're threatened about is black people not minding a place. But they feel a real threat by the Jewish people. And, that's basically, kind of Hitler's type situation where it's like, look, these people,
the Jewish people is that. I forgot his name, but this Jewish guy who was did it occur in the city? I'm not sure, but he was accused of killing a white woman, and I believe he was in jail, and the white people in the town broke into the jail, took him out, and they hung him. And that really scared Jews, and it's like, damn, we treated, we kind of reminiscent of what was happening in Europe, and they was like, that's like niggas, like we got to do. So they formed B'nai B'rith, and that later turned into the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, and I believe and strongly, and I have some evidence to believe it, that this is part of that alliance between blacks and Jews, is that blacks, Jews, Jewish people would use blacks to further their civil rights, and also restrict.
You said who are the first presidents of the NAACP?
Oh, and a lot of the Jewish people, I think, until maybe the NAACP has been around since 1909. I think they didn't get their first, I think, black chairman or president until the 50s. So, and you won't find the reverse. You won't find a Jewish organization that black people are the head of. So, they kind of been junior partners of white supremacy, a lot of, paternalism, telling us, that we restricting our freedom struggle to civil rights while they themselves are supporting political Zionism, the establishment of Israel, a national homeland for themselves, but then eschewing Marcus Garvey for doing the same thing for Black people. So that's my problem with the Jewish people, and specifically here in the United States. And then, you know, they've been a part of white supremacy. You know, that's my issue. But I'm
not your problem with the Jewish people, but the problem with Jewish people that did those type of things and stuff like that. We must distinguish. You say a problem with the Jewish people.
Also, okay, the problem with the Jewish Black alliance, and also the Jewish. Let's be frank. White people come over here to join white supremacy. You know what I'm saying? They're not white when they're abroad. They come here and become white because they want to partake in the privilege and the benefits of being white. And the Jewish people wanted to aspire. They were anglicized. That's one thing Student X is kind of got right, but still kind of got wrong. In the 19th century, you know the notion of the melting pot, right?
Yes.
You want to speak a little bit about what?
Well, I mean, you talk about well, I'm just saying that you talk about America melting pot, all these different cultures coming together and stuff like that. If that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. But melting pot was a actual play written by a Jewish person in the 19th century.
Oh, I did not know.
Yeah, and it became a model. We think of it as like a melting pot, people together. No, the melting pot was a model for assimilation. During the play, Jewish man from Eastern Europe speaking Yiddish, wearing those clothes from Eastern Europe, he goes into the pot, and then he comes out wearing Anglo-Saxon clothes, Anglo-Saxon attire with a white English accent. So they aspired to assimilate, and then they thrusted their aspirations into our political organizations, while they themselves pursued a homeland in Palestine for themselves. So, it's very contradictory, very white supremacy of them. And that's my issue. And I think that should be not this cabal of stuff. It's just
well, that's the nature of the internet. I mean, it's like, look, that's we're using the internet to talk to whomever is willing to listen. You know what I'm saying? We're getting we're having our ability to say our word and to be interact with the people, any comments, whatever. But with this power comes great responsibility, because then there's a reason why flat Earth is basically. I mean, flat Earth is a big thing. People really believe this stuff. So that's why now and it's like with AI is just gonna start, just rewriting stuff, and you're just not gonna know what's gonna be real, and that's gonna be an excuse to take the dumbest theory ever and just run with it. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like I don't know where things are gonna go. I mean, the future
theoretically, though, I wonder if that will force people to be more skeptical.
But see, this is the thing about it, because but they'll hide behind that skeptibility, able to be skeptical to basically reinforce positions that they feel or their gut or they think. Because again, it's one thing to have to present a conspiracy theory as a possibility, and it's one thing to be suspicious of everything. I will always salute being suspicious of that which you can't possibly know, because if you don't observe it, and even if you observe it, your presumption is that you're sophisticated enough to observe it correctly. You know what I'm saying? So there's just so much involved with determining whether something happened or not that to me, I promote skepticism across the board. But we can't use that as an excuse to say, well, dang, everything is just whatever, so I'm gonna just roll with this. You can roll with that, but that's not an argument defending it. That's just something you're choosing to do. And that's the danger of a lot of this conspiracy stuff, is that they seek out the most a lot of stuff. What they believe is narrative driven. It's not practicality driven. It's not just basic sensibility driven. It's convoluted narrative driven, and it's reinforcing what they want to already believe. And maybe they say they don't want to believe it. Oh, it's such a terrible thing, but I mean, they want to believe it because they accept it. You know what I'm saying? So, and again, because conspiracies do happen, but you'll find that in all the conspiracies that happen, there's a general simplicity to everything, because human beings are very simple. They're not. It would hurt a lot of conspiracy people's feelings to realize that there isn't this greater power that's overlooking and looking at everything, whatever, that these dudes aren't just sitting out some beach, drinking mimosas or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They do mild stuff, but for the most part, they spend most of their time living la vida loca. You know what I'm saying? They're not worried about puppeteering your every little action. Sure, they'll get on a committee that picks books for your school or something like that. They'll put money into lobbying particular rules that have some type of financial impact to them. But the thing that they're sitting there worried about puppeteering your every little thing. You're so worried about how powerful they are, but you're so comfortable, with your YouTube show talking about all this recklessness and whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, come on now.
I think, and I don't know what we know it's a lack of critical thinking. We know that a lot of proponents haven't been to college, and I'm just saying it's the college experience. The reason why the right is so, they demonize college education to go after colleges. They're burning books, is because this has been shown through studies. When you're in college, you do move to the left a little bit. I mean, for goodness gracious, you take liberal arts. You know what I'm saying? You're learning classical. You're learning from classical liberals like John Adams and what's the dude whose fingerprint is all in the Declaration? You're learning the classical liberal thinkers. Robespierre during the French Revolution. You're learning.
I mean, it's the nature of more information and critical thinking.
Then also diverse. Like if you're coming from a rural town background, when you come to a college, you get generally a more diverse environment, and it makes you more. Guess what? It makes you more open to diversity and inclusion and equity. So of course they boo-hoo and eschew college, and then you have the skills and the methodology to think your way through things. I think when you lack that, then your ego is a little more fragile and you're a little more secure. So you push for these fringe narratives because they make you feel like I have the insight. I'm superior.
Arguing and debating and just exercising basic logic. It's a skill set. It's a skill set that gets honed by doing this activity. You know what I'm saying? So some people, because they're so narrative driven, they just naturally resist what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? It's more about just a gut reaction resistance. And now you're basically reaching for everything that's basically that's going to aid your defense against this thing, as opposed to just like, look, you may be on one side of the argument. Maybe I'm on the other side of the argument. Maybe I'm not even, maybe I don't really have a dog in the race, but I'm trying to understand this argument. I've heard their logic and this kind of makes sense. So now I'm trying to get to your logic. So in order to do that, we have to make sure that we're dealing with apples and apples and not apples and oranges. So then when I try to reduce things to simplicity, it's the shield that goes up that they just don't want to do it. They just want to pontificate. They just don't whatever. It's like, look,
think part of the problem is they have appreciation for logic.
Well,
it's not appreciation. Logic is an actual, that you can,
it's not appreciation. I don't think it's an appreciation. I suspect that it's a true understanding of it. You know what I'm saying? Because what they're doing is logical based on their conspiratorial information. If you accept that this convoluted thing to be true and this convoluted thing to be true, if you think that that all the stars are rotating around Earth, that Earth is a heliocentric, a geocentric model, you know what I'm saying? And you do the math, you can predict the path that these things are going. They're doing all these flippity flops and flus and stuff like that. But then you realize, well, wait a second. Let me go more of a heliocentric matter. Let me put the sun at the center of this thing. And now I realize that everything isn't doing all these crazy patterns. They're just doing the simplicity. So my point is that it's just a lack of understand. You know what I'm saying? You're so used to this convoluted stuff that this convoluted stuff, it makes sense to you. It's natural to you. And I'm just saying
it's so funny though that you mentioned that the heliocentric thing. I'm sorry, go ahead. I think I could.
Well, go ahead. I mean, my point is that reality is simple. Math is simple. That's why math is the only thing that we do in life where we establish real fact. We can have fact of observation, but even like I tell you, observation is still subject to sophistication. Me, I'm colorblind. So when I look at something, I'm going to see a different color than you're going to see. That's just the nature of it is. I have face blindness. I see you 1 second. I stop looking at you. You cease to exist. I can't picture anything that I can't see. So I don't function on a visual perspective. I function strictly on a mathematic conceptual perspective. I work off a CAD. You know what I'm saying? As far as distance and things like that, I can't use visual cues because I lose all visual everything.
And you know what? So your perspective is biased. Your observations are biased, but we bring similar bias. Everyone brings their own bias to when they observe things. And to me, this elevates science because, science to me, when we say objectivity, what we really mean is intersubjectivity, like the subjective, the consensus across many subjectives that is repeatable, predictable, and very reliable. That seems to be the thing that we can confirm as true. Everything else that is not, we should have some healthy skepticism about it. But I don't know, how do you go from, like, for instance, student X says that Jeffrey Epstein is alive and Netanyahu is dead. Now, like, the evidence for either position weighs heavily on the opposite. So how do you go with the little and the small?
But again, even in logic, they teach us utility. So you know what I'm saying? If this thing has more credibility to you, it's not an issue that more things are saying this. It's the thing that you establish credibility to. So it has a greater utility. It's like there's a coefficient there that basically overtakes why this resonates more with them than that. And I'll say this: I am not going to sit here and tell you whether Netanyahu is alive or Epstein is alive. I'm going to tell you that for all intents and purposes, I suspect Netanyahu is alive, and I suspect Jeffrey Epstein is dead. I have no way to know the truth of it. And if I don't have the ability to know the truth of it, guess what? I don't give a damn. I'm not going to tell you one way or the other.
It's kind of like saying Jesus still alive or is he dead or the tomb, we don't know either or, but we generally say we believe James Brown is dead. We believe Malcolm X is dead. So I don't understand, why suddenly he can't be dead.
Well, because they got videos. They have videos that show him with 6 fingers. They have videos that show things. Now they explain it away. But I'm saying, but they explain it away that you're just catching a screenshot. That's just like when you catch a screenshot of something that's moving and it's blurred. It's not blurred in real life. You just caught that movement that's over the course of that is captured, that's causing that effect. Because what they're showing you. So really, it's like a lot of that stuff. To me, you have proofs to life. You have things that you can do that will give you evidence. But I'm not gonna bust my head over trying to get someone to accept something that's simply true.
I'm saying that doesn't explain why take the most improbable, the least likely.
Because their information sources are telling them that Israel is getting its ass kicked, and that in fact they're getting their ass kicked so bad that Netanyahu's been killed. They are talking all this about
not just with that particular thing, but I'm just saying, like, Tyler Robinson didn't kill
because they want to believe the convoluted story that how is this kid that's gonna get this gun, this kid, and just shoot this person from this distance, you know what I'm saying? That's gonna just some kid, like whatever, some random kid that just whatever, blah blah blah. No, Charlie Kirk was the Malcolm X, and he was gonna do great things, and the Jews just weren't gonna stand for it. I'm just saying that it fits their narrative. That's why when I talk about narrative driven, the whole thing about the conspiracy community is that all of their logic is narrative driven as opposed to evidence driven. You know what I'm saying? So that's why. So when you talk about things like the 9/11, they're like, they blew it up. They had all these bombs and stuff like that. And I go, okay, check this out. Let's say it wasn't the planes that blew it up. Let's say it was the bombs that blew it up. Why couldn't they just say the terrorists planted the bomb? Let's say you say that they fired a missile that at the Pentagon, it wasn't a plane or whatever. Why they couldn't just say terrorists fired a missile? It's like, this they wouldn't need this. This is such a dumb cover to make this thing true.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
then when they do the math and they show you how the fuel in this circumstance, they can literally reproduce why this heat. And then when the beams give, it's basically the equivalent of blowing up. That's all the support. Once the support goes, it's going to fall down. All this stuff is still physically connected. It's going to fall down just like it is. You're going to have debris that comes from here that affects this building. Why is this building? This building
tell me
didn't
this
get
though.
hit. This
And I
building
agree
didn't
with
get
you,
hit.
man.
This building didn't get hit. Why did it just fall down?
Yeah.
Dude, debris this building landed on there and basically created the same situation.
But why do you think multiple conspiracy theory? Because I can understand everyone. You know, people have some skepticism around 911 or a particular thing. Like there are some conspiracies out there that I think, okay, that could be viable, but why the extreme? I agree. So you know, the dude, he was actually sued. He lied about the Sandy Hook. He put out false information.
That was the info guy. That was
Info Wars.
Yeah. The Alex Jones.
Candace Owens and them, they're following that same playbook and the same formula.
The internet eats that up. We're gonna get so many clicks, but if we full dived into that stuff, our clickdom would go through the roof. You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden.
So check it out, the clicks and the views, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's we overlooked that. That's what drives people to promote certain. You know, like I'm going to say Harvey Weinstein, free him. I'm going to say Trump could have inserted his name in the Epstein files to motivate or inspire Democrats to release the files. I'm going to go against all the evidence. The 3 jurisdictions of police collected evidence for Tyler Roberts. I'm going to go against because it makes not so smart people who don't have critical thinking skills, who haven't pursued I just want to say, I'm sorry, real quick. I'm sorry, nice guy, but I want to say something about college because I keep saying this, and it's not to say that education doesn't, that it starts and ends with college or anything like that. But in college, if you know anything how college is structured, I believe the average college student spends, I think, 40, 50 hours a week in class and studying. I think for every credit, there's 2 hours of study, some average like that. You don't do that. Non-college people don't study that much. So when you're in college, you're exposed to information. You're generally not working, and you're getting all this information, different accumulation of not just information from one person, but historical information that has been accumulated over time. And you're getting a curriculum that's written by multiple people with oversight and a check and balance. You've been inundated with that for 50 hours a week for 4 years. Your thinking is going to be different from someone who didn't have that experience. And you're going to get accolades not from your accomplishments in that academic environment, but from saying crazy fringe shit that's going to make people look at you, and you're going to feel that I'm the one that, like even Candace Owens, she does this thing what if, the hidden truth, stuff like that. So I think the identity ego thing is a big part of it too.
Well, I've always made this argument too. Smart people are really not occupied with being smart. Dumb people are occupied with being smart.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, it's just and again, I think that we come from a culture like you got to understand, a person like Student X is not motivated by money. He's not motivated by clicks. He's motivated by sincere belief. And you got to understand that Student X, like me, like you, we come from a generation that was really high into the conspiracy stuff. There was a book called Behold a Pale White Horse.
Behold a Pale Horse.
I'm just telling you, this book was an influential, impactful book on strong Black minds of our era. You know what I'm saying? So you were embracing. I'm just saying that you were the whole year 2000 bug and the Illuminati and what was the thing that was going to be happening there? I forgot what was the thing that was the big thing that everybody predicted. I forgot. New World Order.
You know what I'm saying? Order,
so you know,
Y2K.
Yeah, it's just all that stuff, and you know, and none of it played out. You know what I'm saying? But my point is that when you come from that, and then you have a brother that goes from that into the Nation of Islam. So now you're talking about you're really reinforcing teaching of a lot of conspiracies and stuff like that. Again, I'm a champ. I have a tremendous respect for the Nation of Islam, for Elijah Muhammad. You know, even that white dude that's pretending to be black. I'm just saying it. I know it's disrespectful for me to say that, but you know, I'm always going to say that. But you know, but the bottom line is that you know,
not too disrespectful.
That notwithstanding that whatever, I'm just saying that you know they a lot of the teachings, it's almost like church. You know what I'm saying? They're reinforcing this narratives that you know that the white man is really crafting all these things, and we know that they really did do stuff. COINTEL really did happen. J. Edgar Hoover really did these things that we say that he did. They were conspiratory. He really did fan the flames between Malcolm X's camp and the Nation of Islam. This is the evidence is out there. They really did this, and then their files are made public. You know what I'm saying? But notwithstanding that, you know what I'm saying? Again, I'm just telling you, just like I talk about God, I'm a believer in God. God is not sitting there puppeteering your every little action and stuff like that. There's sort of like basic things that are set up, and then we have freedom of free will, and we're the persons that are responsible for most of the stuff that's happening. And as far as them, they do a little thing, and they just sit back and enjoy the
and I just want to say too, after you know, years later, looking back, like that book that you mentioned, William Cooper, Behold the Pale Horse. Also, Richard Allen's None Dare Call It a Conspiracy. There's a whole category of books that you at the bookstore that were conspiratorial books that were very popular, even in the Afrocentric bookstores. And all of those
shout out to Dawa Books that was on Crenshaw. That was a big
okay.
a big black
was that near the Good Life?
Yeah, exactly. That was
okay,
that was, you know, I don't know if it's still going on, but that was where you would get those, you know, conspiracy books, get your Quran with a K, and you know what I'm saying. So there was a lot, and good incense, good smell.
And Detroit, Shrine of the Black Madonna, that was one that bookstore is stored. You know, what's the brother name that was the founder? I forgot, but anyway, but yeah. So all those books, just to mention, all those people were right wing folks. They were all those books were anti-communist, anti-LGBTQ, anti-immigrant, and they suffered from just niggophobia. I mean, to be honest, they were racist. So you know that they seem to foment the most of the conspiracy theories. I think it's part because they are Christian evangelical base, or have been ever since the big shift in the 60s, which they deny. I mean, how do you deny that?
Hey, did you ever get those comic books from the Catholics where it was like these it's like this Catholic ex-Catholic guy?
You mean the Christian tracts?
But these were actually like comic books, and they were literally about how the Jesuits were behind everything, and it was like this ex priest.
Hold on, what era is this? When did you see him?
This is like around the era of like when I was in high school, 89 and 90 and stuff like that.
I haven't
and
seen those.
Comic books, and these dudes would talk about how the Jesuits, they have a hand in everything. They're the secret cabal. They're the ones that control it and stuff like that. And I mean, it's just that's the type of stuff that they whatever.
And that's the source. And that's the source of where a lot of that stuff comes. You know, the Illuminati. You know, the Illuminati was an actual group. You know, it means to enlighten. They were part of the Enlightenment. They were against the Catholic Church. So of course, the Catholic Church demonized them and associated them with the devil and Satan and all that stuff. No, but they were against, religious people ruling on the idea that they have divine.
The young me used to eat that up like the X-Files.
Me too.
This might be true, man. This is you know, I'm just saying. So I'm just saying and that's the reason why Charlie Kirk went to colleges.
Yeah.
And he was debating with kids that weren't sophisticated enough, because his ass was getting crushed when he was adult. When he was debating with adults, he was getting crushed But he was having relatively good success against kids, because again, the right teaches you that basically colleges are Marxism factories. You know what I'm saying? That and that's just what it is. But it's
again, they're right to that. Studies again show that you go to college, you go slightly more to the left. I mean, even if you are a Republican, you're less of a right-centered Republican, and that's just a fact. Like you said, liberal arts and
that's probably a good point. Is there anything in closing that you want to say? I don't want to burn up too much up in the shed.
Are we then?
Whatever you feel you want to address, let's go ahead and address it.
Okay, just a little family tree of it. The foreign entanglement talk rhetoric coming from George Washington, Thomas Jefferson is what led to the Monroe Doctrine, and that led to isolationism, which led to American First, which leads directly to the American First Committee and where we are right now. That same rhetoric, again, is twofold. There's the domestic policy to it that is that's undeniably anti-immigrant, and there's a foreign policy to it that is not anti-imperialism. And that's the problem with it, essentially.
Facts. So you ain't gotta preach it to me. I mean, I get it. It's like I understand how someone can get caught up in just the label, because I'll say this. My problem with the label is when you have a label that's like of two basic words like America and First, it's easy to sort of like take that and make it mean what you want it to mean. But you can't separate it from the history of what's been used to used under that same label. And then when you find a similarity of a position that they took that you put, there's that connective tissue. So I always say that there's a difference. You couldn't just now go, you know what, I want to form a group that's about helping people, and I'm gonna call it the Ku Klux Klan. And there's no way that you can unmarry it from the history of what the Ku Klux Klan is. You know what I'm saying? It's just not a function. Those are Ku Klux and Klan are not just the natural combination of three just whatever words. You know what I'm saying? It's very specific. So you know what I'm saying? So that's the nature of that thing. But yes, we understand that they're still serving the empire. Trump is drunk with power. We didn't really get to talk about that, but he's literally.
Yeah, I saw that was on the agenda.
I could just take Cuba. I can do whatever I want. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, this is the guy he's always been. And we have an objective deconstruction where we talked about that. And it's not about sticking our tongues out and doing this, all this, and saying we told you. We're just saying that, look, dude, this dude revealed what he was coming from and where he was at long ago. You should not have anticipated anything other than that. There's just no way that these certain things would have happened under a different presidency. And I
think with Candace Owens in particular, she has a history of where she defects, and that's part of.
She's been flopping all over the stuff. She started off defending like black HBCUs and stuff like that, and then she's been Tarzan into all type of different vines and stuff like that. And I commend her success. Always will compartmentalize.
No, man.
Listen. I will compartmentalize and say, as a YouTube personality, which technically we are. Neither of us are using our government names. I will appreciate someone who's basically in the field that we're doing it and doing it at a very successful level. I'm not commending her for leading people astray or encouraging stupidity or whatever. I think she makes good points at times. I've seen her have great arguments at times. I've seen her have absolutely ridiculous arguments at times. That video that we shared in the Focused Up chat, whatever, such and such, it gave me a headache. You know what I'm saying? It was so ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? But again, at the end of the day, she's got a humongous following. So does Tucker Carlson. And, so did Kevin Samuels. And I will at least salute their excellence in their craft. I will not give them a free pass for the terrible things that they do. And that applies to me, that applies to you, that applies to Martin Luther J. King, that applies to Bill Cosby. You know what I'm saying? We talked about this. You can be two things. They say don't meet your heroes. And the reason why they say that is because, then you're going to find out that your hero is just a regular person with the flaws that people have. And I'm just saying that it's okay to separate and say that, look, I appreciate that they championed and did this one thing. This other thing, totally effing ridiculous. So that's all I'm saying after I got. So I'm not giving her a pat on the back for being a person. I'm giving her a pat on the back for
this
being
cat name,
doing what
we can say, we can say Gobbles and Adolf, they did a good job of establishing the
you can argue that, and some people have argued that there was great technology that came out of that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So but let's guess what? I will commend the good. I will put a blinding light on the bad, because when you're just talking about executing people and all that other stuff, that dude was.
I would say I would agree. She creates views. She gets clicks. She gets money and endorsements. She does good in that.
Creates consumable content that's like must-see TV for a lot of people like Student X.
And I think that if we would get more clicks if we got ridiculous stories.
Kevin Samuels, he said it. He goes, if I do this, I'm only going to do this. If I do that,
say it, brother. Say it. What did he say again?
Yeah, he basically said, look, if I just make this about
paraphrasing,
I'm paraphrasing, but he basically says, if I just make this about me telling black men what they need to do to step up their game, I'm only going to get so many clicks. But if I turn this into hot takes and criticizing black women, I'll probably go through the roof. You know what I'm saying? Because people they don't love necessarily criticism of themselves. They love criticism of somebody else. And Kevin Samuels was a champion for high maintenance men that get their nails done and complain when they don't get a good presents for Valentine's Day. You know what I'm saying? That's who his audience was. And I understand that there's some people that say, well, I don't do that, but I just but look, he makes you feel good because he's taking black women to task, but he's taking a certain type of black women to task. And
they're okay with, like, he showed me all those videos. All those videos were I guess, I don't know, interactions with women, and they all involve telling women what they should and should not do. And, and it's presenting this idea that women's delusions are part of the relationship issues in the black community. They're okay with that. But then when you call out the men, part of our responsibility is like that defensiveness, that protection. And, I know I'm going over that same point, but, this patriarchy is protected by men mostly. Women don't protect it. Hey, there's an interesting I guess demographic or data analysis where they show if only women were able to vote, the government will all be Democrats. You know what I'm saying?
And that's a whole nother argument. Yeah, but hey, I'm gonna tell you right now, there was a beautiful quote that I dropped in the chat, and you agreed with it, and I agreed with it. I remember what it was, but it was something to the effect of that, that black weak men didn't vote for such and such because of, or about strong. So I want to say the quote because you really need to present it how it was. But again, it was a testimony. When you hear the people that complain, it's like they're coming from that, and it's like, dude, what, you don't need to defend this. If this doesn't apply to you, it don't apply. Why are you defending
look at what Lord Jamar said. He said what you just the data that you were gathering or something, or the quote that you were referencing. He said, "Man, y'all pressuring me to vote for Kamala. I just might vote for Trump." He felt indignant. He felt he was being pressured or pushed to vote. A lot of people, men, I believe, black men too, did vote for Trump just out of spite.
And again, we want to stress the majority of black men showed up. So again, it's not.
And a lot of those black men, like myself, do not like Kamala, do not like the Democratic Party at all, but they voted because of the lesser of two evil strategy. I mean, it's just like, look at where we're at now. It would have taken the Democrats decades to get where we are at right now. I'm not saying that they were not on that train and headed in that direction. There's an inevitable fascism.
I love how you described it. The fast track, the fast track fascism.
Man.
So that haven't been said.
Okay.
Have we covered everything that you really want to get out there?
Yeah.
So again, we appreciate your comments. You know what I'm saying? And again, if you got something that you want to say something about it. If you feel that you need to be on the show, honestly, if you got a show and you want to invite us on your show to talk about some of these things, we will travel. You know what I'm saying? So the bottom line is we are not afraid of discussion, and we appreciate it. And a person like myself, I'm not a person of a lot of established positions. I'm a person that embraces working theories. And at the end of the day, if you got a better argument, you're gonna win me over, because I ain't trying to defend much of nothing. So that's where I'm coming from. So that having been said, thank you. Like, share, subscribe, focus up, spin that back, reading politics, sex talk, walk, street focus, all of it. Shout out. Peace. That's what's up.